2018's Mandy is a trip of a film. The oversaturated colors, the surrealist heavy metal imagery, and all the other stylish elements, combined with a compelling, unique performance from Nick Cage, as well as the supporting players, the film quickly built a cult following. But that's not what the movie's about. The plot of the movie is a man seeking revenge on the people who kidnapped and murdered his partner. Yet, when I see discussions of the film, it always focuses on the style of it. So I want to look at the way the film balances its story and style, and why the two work so well together. Let's do this. Okay, so I'm going to be looking at this through the lens of the Critique Handbook by Kendall Buster and Paula Crawford, specifically the chapter on form and content, because that's what this is. In the handbook, they say, one way of looking at the form-content relationship is to visualize a line with form at one end and content at the other, and to imagine any given work of art as being located somewhere on the continuum. So we're going to do that. If you thought there was going to be like a fancy graph, welcome to my channel. Like the video and subscribe. I need heavier clips. All right, and we've got it. We have form on one end and harder to read content on the other, but I'm sure this is exactly what they were picturing when they wrote this book. To figure out where Mandy fits on this spectrum, we're going to have to start by taking a look at its story. Meaning can never be completely contained in any work of art or in any of its parts. Like I said, it's a revenge film. The titular Mandy is abducted by a Manson-like figure who eventually kills her. Her partner Red, played by Cage, has to mow down the cult to avenge her. Now this is a fairly straightforward plot for a grindhouse film, and if they had made a more grounded film with this plot, it would have existed in the realm of movies like Last House on the Left. And no slight on movies like that, but it's been done and usually pulled from its 70s roots. Gritty exploitation films come and go, and while some have developed their own followings, they tend to be less memorable overall. But Mandy is nowhere near that type of film. It's not even close. And those early grindhouse films do have their own style. But it is a style out of necessity and the resources they had in the 70s as much as it is a choice. And the only real connection between them is the rural setting and the violence. Like I said, the film is probably most widely discussed for the style it presents. Abstraction, in the purest sense, begins with reality and draws away from it. People often view surrealism as doing strange things to confuse the audience or to make them uncomfortable. But that's really not it. I mean, that can be what happens, or what young, sometimes student filmmakers do when they want to look deep and artsy. And no shade there. I did that. I did that in some of my classes when I was younger. It's kind of natural to just do things like that before you're really in tune with what art is, or at least in my experience. Talking about the style of the film, Panos Cosmatos has said,
after completing Black Rainbow, I became sort of even more kind of committed to this idea of these sort of audio-visual, sensory, kind of very textured experiences. I mean, I try to make the scripts as evocative and atmospheric as possible.
Showing us that the visual strangeness of Mandy is ingrained into the script. So I'm going to take Mandy and put it closer to form, but closer to center than you would initially think. My reason for this is because the content is the form. Now that's going to sound obvious, but it is really worth mentioning. There are plenty of movies that, for whatever reason, end up missing the point of their own story. This one is a Holocaust comedy, of all things. Even Mel Brooks hates it, the guy who wrote Springtime for Hitler. But with Mandy, the visual elements feed into the world of the film, and the mental state of its characters. For example, the film has an extreme heavy metal cover art vibe to it, like, look at those demon bikers. This comes both from the era it's set in, because Mandy is in the early 80s, when all the big thrash and extreme bands were getting started, but it's also a reflection of the character Mandy, who herself is a fan of the genre. And you can also point out that the monsters are Red's grief, because of course they are. And you can't really discuss the visual elements of Mandy without touching on the LSD that the cult has. It's like a more extreme LSD than in reality, and it's the most obvious tie between the narrative and the surrealist elements of the film. That's a classic way to incorporate trippy elements into your film, but of course, Mandy goes the extra mile and makes it fucking epic. Cosmatos and his team craft beautiful, otherworldly imagery washed in reds and magentas. It really is evocative, inviting you into the insanity along with the characters. Honestly, looking at the line, I'm wondering if Mandy should be even closer to the middle, you know? No, we're gonna leave it where it is. We're gonna leave Mandy where it is. Honestly, Mandy is a sight to behold. It's amazing how, in 2 movies, Panos Cosmatos has proven himself to be an extremely evocative filmmaker who can expertly build insane visuals that so perfectly tie into the emotional core of its characters. After seeing Beyond the Black Rainbow, I was blown away by what he did. I had to check out Mandy as soon as I could, and since 2018, I've been waiting to see what he does next. And honestly, if you've seen Mandy but haven't checked out Beyond the Black Rainbow, I really suggest that you do. It's not the same kind of film. It's not as epic or as hardcore or any of those big words like that, those aggressive big words, but I think it's just as well crafted, and the way it tells its story visually is just as well done, but shows that Cosmatos is not just a one-trick pony in how he presents his visuals. The balance between form and content in these films are so well done, especially in an age where the biggest films are more focused on uniformity than anything else. His work is honestly like a breath of fresh air. I hope we get more films from Cosmatos, because the industry needs creators with this eye for detail. We don't have as many up-and-coming filmmakers who are doing the kind of stuff that he's doing. So what do you think? Agree or disagree? Do you think I place Mandy in the right place on this scale, or would you push it further in one direction or the other? And, you know, tell me what other thoughts you have on the film, the director, any of that stuff in the comments below. I love having little chats with people there. And until next time, have a good one.